The Syrian army, backed by Russian warplanes, are striking rebel targets in the country's north after a dramatic escalation in the country's long-running civil war that represents the biggest challenge to the president, Bashar al-Assad, in years. The attacks hit a crowded residential area in the city of Idlib, causing severe destruction. Emergency workers say at least 7 people were killed and dozens of others were injured. Syria's White Helmets, a team of volunteers which operate in parts of opposition-controlled areas, say civilians are again paying the price of the war.
Once again, this history is repeating itself. Thousands of people, if you can say now, fleeing their homes, fleeing their residential neighborhoods from Idlib and the west countryside of Aleppo. They're fleeing to the camps once again, and the situation is getting worse and worse as we are talking now.
The latest flare-up began almost a week ago. The rebels made quick gains around Aleppo and seized control of most of the city within 3 days. They then advanced on Idlib. There are reports the insurgency has now reached the city of Hama, but there's been no independent confirmation on that front. Syria's army chief has vowed to crush the resistance.
This is our land, our honour and our dignity, but anyone who is a mercenary or acting outside the law and tries to open fire will be dealt with on the spot.
Many Aleppo residents have joined opposition fighters in celebrating the rebels' advance. It means some people displaced during a decade of control by the president's forces are now able to return to their homes.
After 8 years' absence from our house and our family and our neighbourhood, we went and saw and met everyone, our neighbours and our family, and greeted them all. A joy that can't be described and is very great.
The insurgency is being led by a former al-Qaeda affiliate, which is now known as Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, or HTS. It's designated as a terrorist organisation by the Australian government. The movement has been joined by militia groups backed by Turkey. The coalition launched its surprise assault while the Syrian government's key allies, Russia and Iran, are preoccupied with their own conflicts.
The Syrian armed opposition, including HTS, has essentially been fighting a static war for the last 5 years. And the Syrian government has occasionally bombed or launched very small-scale incursions into these remaining armed opposition-controlled areas. But there hasn't been fighting of this scale for many years. And reason it's also important is that the Syrian government's forces have been extremely weak and have rapidly retreated.
Meeting in Damascus, Iran's foreign minister has reassured the Syrian leader that Tehran is ready to support moves to push back the insurgents. But the offensive and the loss of Aleppo in particular is seen as a major blow to President al-Assad. Protests against his rule turned into an all-out war in 2011 when the government crushed a pro-democracy movement. The United Nations estimates up to 600,000 people have been killed and millions of others displaced during the conflict. The UN Special Envoy for Syria is calling for urgent dialogue between all parties.
What we are seeing now is that for the first time in 4.5 years, the front lines are shifting dramatically. What we need to see is that calm is restored, we need to see de-escalation, and then we need to see a focus on the political process. And what do I mean by that? By that I mean that the Syrian parties need to come together, supported by the Americans, the Russians, the Iranians and the Turks.